Major survey of parents across the country, which is raising big questions about the future of our schools, including religion and education, the role of the Irish language, and whether single-sex schools are on the way out. Here in Clare, the results are particularly thought-provoking, with close to 60% of parents in the county wanting primary schools to maintain a religious ethos. To delve further into this, I'm joined on the line by Dónal Ó'Loinsigh, the Irish language enthusiast and presenter of Clare FM's Cool Chaint. Dónal, good to have you on. How are you?
Good morning, Alan.
Thanks very much for being with us. So this is on foot of the government's Department of Education's National Primary Survey, and I guess, Dónal, it gives us a fascinating snapshot of parents' views. What stood out to you, particularly from a Clare perspective? Was it that 59% who want to maintain some form of religious ethos, or were there other elements that were more standout or surprising to you?
Well, I suppose across the board there were a variety of results from it, and there could be definitely some results drawn from it. But on the outset, of course, one is maybe sometimes we're a little sceptical of surveys commissioned by the Department of Education. In the past, they haven't seemed to be hitting the nail on the head, and I think there was a fair share of disquiet when the survey was launched at just the wording of it and how the questions were asked. Were they asked in such a way to get a certain answer? Now that's maybe going a bit far, but you always have the doubting of when departments are formulating the survey themselves. Would it not have been maybe a little more thorough to get an outsider, an independent body to formulate the survey and to get the answers sort of outside of the remit of the department? But having said that, it does give a bit of a picture, and maybe the picture is different from what people would have thought of beforehand, with a 60% amount of parents in denominational schools wishing to retain that ethos. Well, that's probably, if we look at it carefully, it would be a given, because an awful lot of parents would be loyal and would be wishing to remain in the school that they have started in. There would have been a certain loyalty to them, and maybe that would have influenced that a little.
Yeah, so they don't want to rock the boat.
Precisely, and a lot of parents would have built up that loyalty over the years, maybe over generations, particularly in rural schools. And it would be very difficult to change it, and particularly again in rural areas. Maybe the urban picture might be a little different, where there would be maybe a lot more transition within schools and from schools during the life of the school life of a pupil. But having said that, it does say that the ethos of schools, of denominational schools, is acceptable to parents. That's 3 out of every 5 parents going on that. With regard to the other questions that were asked, was the percentage of children in single-sex primary schools indicates a preference for their schools to transition to co-education. Now, I think that is going on a trend at the moment, because there are very, very few co-ed or single-sex education schools. I think there are only 5, if I can correct, 5 counties where there are no single-sex education primary schools. So that's something that has been occurring, I suppose, for many years, and it's only just a culmination of that. The percentages are all in the low 70s to high 80s. So it's maybe parents voting for or expressing an opinion or a preference for something that's already there.
And I'm particularly keen to get your thoughts on the parts of the survey addressing the Irish language. And particularly with Clare, it's interesting, Dónal, because despite, in Clare, there's strong support for English remaining the main teaching language, yet despite that strong support, Clare actually has one of the lowest levels of support for that nationally. How do you interpret that, and do you think there is any sort of growing openness to Irish or perhaps bilingual education amongst parents?
Well, first and foremost, I think when the survey was launched and when the wording of the questions and the way it was put were on, a lot of all of the Irish language organisations, and particularly Gaeligicus, who are responsible for promoting Irish medium education. The way the language or the way the survey was worded and the language in it, what it said was that the percentage of parents of children in primary schools that teach mainly through English expressed a preference for English to remain the primary language of instruction. Now that is that schools that are normal national schools, English medium national schools throughout the country, a percentage of them said that they would like to remain that way. In other words, that they didn't wish for it to change from being the English being the medium of Irish. Yeah. And it was nothing to do maybe with the reflection of the situation or the status of Irish within the schools. That wasn't it. But the Gaeligicus organisation at the time suggested and proposed and submitted that if the wording was a little different, it might reflect how many people are the percentage of parents in a given area who would wish Irish medium education for their children. Not that their local school would change from an English medium to an Irish medium, but how many parents or what the percentage of parents would be who would like their children to be educated through Irish.
And I wonder, Dónal, if it had been worded in that way, what level of response or positive response do you think that might have garnered?
I think it would have been a far, far higher because from the way that the last Cantech survey that was conducted by Gaeligicus and Conor na Gaeilge showed that throughout the country there was a huge desire for Irish medium education, not for the local school to change, but for Irish medium education to be available in a given area. And if we look at the Clare situation, it's 84.8, so it's 85%. And that would leave a 15% margin of parents who would wish the English to be or their English medium school to be changed. At the moment, there are 4 Irish medium schools, Gaelscoileanna, in Clare, and if the 15%, that's about a 6% average. So therefore, if the 15% was going to, we would have to almost quadruple the amount of Irish medium schools in the county to fall in line with the results of the survey. So I think it was a little misleading there and misguided that they were asking a question that wasn't going to reflect what they really wanted to know. Or did they want to know? Because the Department of Education has not established or approved the establishment of any Gaelscoil, primary or post-primary, for a number of years. And
obviously you think there should be more Gaelscoileanna or Irish language streams offered to meet the demand that's out there as you see it.
And that was an element that was never touched within the survey.
Because I wonder, sorry to cut across you, Dónal, I wonder, if you look at it the way the question was asked, and it shows, Clare has one of the lowest levels of support nationally for English remaining the main teaching language, yet there's still strong support in this county. And one of the potential, I guess, conclusions you could draw from that is, well, maybe parents in Clare and obviously in other counties are worrying that more Irish medium education might impact their children's academic performance or opportunities, but that might be a bit of a red herring. You don't think that is a good way? You can't read into it in that way.
Yes, that would, and studies and the data available right through the recent past has shown that the opposite is the way. For in actual fact, that it has absolutely no impact on the status or the standard of education. The total reverse is the actual reality. A survey conducted up to primary or up to post-primary intermediate certificate or the junior cert showed that children from Irish medium schools going into second level English medium schools performed on an average of a minimum of 15% better in English than their counterparts. So therefore, that was a shock, and I remember when it came out, it was a survey that was kept kind of quiet because people went against the common belief. But that was the actual facts, because that was the data that showed it. But having said that, I don't think that showing what has happened through Gaelscoil and Gaelscoil down through the years, in the last 20 years, it has shown that children coming through the Irish medium system are performing as well, if not better, than the national average.
I do have to finish, but before I do, Dónal, you know, you believe there should be more Irish language streams and Gaelscoil offered because there is a demand out there. In simple terms, what should the future of language and the Irish language in our education system look like?
Well, first and foremost, I think that the department has to look at the system of teaching Irish and teaching Irish as a language. Many organisations and very eminent people have suggested that the current method of teaching Irish is outdated and is counterproductive, and it doesn't leave children or pupils finishing their post-primary education unable to speak the language, having a very, very poor fluency level. And that goes against what is happening throughout Europe, all over. Many systems were proposed. The TEG system, which is a pan-European system, was proposed. And the minister declined it and rejected it. So therefore, the department, I think, have to become more proactive. And that's where it lies. Okay. Teachers and pupils and parents are willing and more than willing to embrace Gaeilge, and that's shown us on the way that Irish is becoming more acceptable, and the level of acceptance, particularly through young people, is rising the whole time, and we see that here even in the town of Ennis. So therefore, the department, I think it's the ball is in their court now, and to make sure that they make the correct decisions. Many of the decisions they've made have not been correct and have been proved so.
Okay, we do have to leave it there. But Dónal, pleasure as always to have you on and your thoughts on these matters. Míle buíochas agus slán go fóill.
Míle buíochas and go míle maithagad.